basically car crashes. That's what collisions are in the NFL. Mini car crashes happening. And you sign up for that. And if you love the game, you'll risk your body for it. I agree with you. It's a little crazy how they're kind of really diving into this, but I think it's vital for Pop Warner, high school, any of those levels, college, because those players are not paid and they can't recover from, or they don't have special equipment. Okay? They need to find a way to make sure that Pop Warner, high school, lower levels of football get proper treatment. It could be very scary down the line if they don't have that proper treatment. I mean, Sam, come on. If you're a Pop Warner player, if you're a dad of a Pop Warner football player and your son is in Pop Warner, okay, he gets a concussion, will you want at least some support?
Let me rephrase what I said earlier. You can pay for what's going on. If you're being paid professionally, then you should make as big of a deal about it. I do agree with you. That was a great point on how these players aren't getting paid to play the game of football, college, Pop Warner, high school. These players should really be very cautious about what they're doing. My problem really is with the rules that are being used to limit these plays. Like I had said earlier in the show, the head-to-head helmet collisions and the fines that are going on in the NFL are really a cause of concern. What, in your opinion, would be like a better way to stop these problems? Because to me, it doesn't seem like this is even stopping at all.
Yeah, I don't. Okay, this is the problem I have with the rules. If you're protecting helmet to helmet, and then you're saying, okay, here's the reason why I think all of these injuries are discussed. I think the proper technique of tackling is not celebrated for and is not shown and taught enough. Because I've seen guys just launch with their heads and their chest right into a player. And that's not a proper technique, right? I mean, in the old days and, the 90s and the 80s, it was proper tackling. You don't see that at all. I mean, that's actually the problem with broken tackles now. Some guys aren't tackling correctly. Running backs are getting easy broken tackles or touchdowns. I mean, it's unbelievable how players aren't being taught how to tackle correctly at even the lower levels of football. That's why I think if people and players really learn the true fundamentals and apply it to their game consistently, we shouldn't even having this. I think we should not even be having this discussion. I mean, you'd have to agree that the principles of tackling have reduced greatly. I mean, it's atrocious and ridiculous what's been going on with the fundamentals of tackling.
Yeah, I'd like to compare what's going on in the NFL. I think the best sport to look at it's really going on in the majority of sports because of kind of how people have begun to play almost all games. I like to look at basketball. You look at the 70s and 80s and watch game film. It's perfect technique at everything in the NBA. They hit mid-range jumpers with ease. They had different moves. Now you look at the game, it's just a bunch of obviously the greats are still great at technique and everything, but there's a bunch of players in the NBA. You look at a DeAndre Jordan, for
instance. Oh my God, yeah.
Who's just a pure athlete, doesn't have much skill, but is such a freakish athlete that he's so great at basketball. And I like to compare that to the NFL, where many of these players, look at that guy Dontari Poe, who was drafted with the 7th overall pick. Not much was known about him except he was a freak of nature. Well, he hasn't even been that great, but the fact that he can be drafted that high just for his skills just shows how technique really has gone to waste in the majority of sports, and football is one of the main sports where that kind of atrophy has happened to technique.
Yeah, I think that the technique. Agree. Like even in the NBA too. I mean, I wonder. Like, we'll get back to the NFL. I'll make sure I get back to that part. But with the NBA, I mean, you see so many charges. It's not great defense when a charge happens. It's bad offense because you have to jump stop. You have to make another decision before that charge is going to even occur. I mean, those simple things. I mean, the technique, I agree. It's gone. Hey, if Tim Tebow can play quarterback, that means technique is gone. I like Tebow a lot, but
it
if
also
that
means there's a God, just to put it out there.
I like Tebow, even though people make fun of him and all the. I want him to do well, but let's face it. If this was the 80s and the 90s, he would not be playing quarterback.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. And just to stay on Tebow, because I just love to discuss Tebow.
Yeah,
I love to watch Tebow. I like to make fun of Tebow. I like to comment on Tebow. Tebow. Am I right? But with Tebow, that's a great example of technique. But he's a quarterback. And speaking on offensive terms, have you noticed really that the helmet-to-helmet collisions do not protect offensive players? Do not protect defensive players who are hit head-to-head by offensive players running into them to try to break a tackle.
I've recognized that too, and it's stunning. Because actually, thinking about it, I see a lot more defensive players getting injured than offensive players at times. Would you agree? I've seen it in games, in particular games, where you see more defensive players than offensive players getting injured.
Yeah, when an offensive player and a defensive player collide, the offensive player, in many cases, unless it's a defenseless receiver, is going faster than the defensive player. The defensive player often has had to change direction, while an NFL running back, for instance, who's picked up a head of steam, might come into a defender and just hammer him. But if they go head-to-head, the defender's called for the penalty. So I think that's kind of a problem. That's almost more of an offensive penalty, in my opinion, than defensive. You agree?
Yeah. That's what I've been hearing too. A lot of sports writers saying that as well. I'd agree. By the way, even though we have ran out of topics technically, I want to get to. You know what? Yeah, let's take one more break. We'll come back. We'll have more to talk about here on the show. Yeah, I know we do love talking Tebow. Even though everyone on this channel hates talking about Tebow. I like talking about him, you like talking about him, but everyone else tries to avoid him. I mean, before we go to break, you want Tebow to do well, right?
Do I want Tebow to do well?
Like, do you want him to be a Pro Bowl, Super Bowl type quarterback?
I think it would almost be funny to see Tebow succeed. I thought that's what it was like last year. Watching Tebow is like watching like a sitcom. You know, it's just strange. He looks like a guy who should have been done with the NFL a long time ago. His body is that of a fullback. He throws like an NFL punter. You know, he's not much of a quarterback. But for some reason, whenever he plays, Tebow can win. I don't know if that's because of his leadership abilities, if it's because God smiles upon him. But you know what?
All he does is win.
I don't know if it's good for the NFL or not. I really can't tell you right now. I don't know if it would be actually good because he's, like we were talking about, the NFL's technique has gone to waste, and if Tebow can win a Super Bowl, then I can win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, but then you have to jump through the roof, and you have to be able to run a 4.3 and 40.
Oh, I can figure that out. I just can't throw a football.
Just hire a professional trainer, and you can do that, but...
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, if Tebow improves his the NFL's ratings, and if Tebow wins the Super Bowl, it would skyrocket. Every single non-NFL fan would become an NFL fan. All right.
Yeah.
Wait, go ahead.
Okay, quickly, just to say that, speaking on that matter, if everyone watched the NFL that doesn't watch the NFL now, and non-NFL fans started to watch because of Tebow, the NFL might become the most popular sport. I mean, it is already the most popular sport, but we could have, global popularity. I have cousins who live in Israel who ask me about Tim Tebow, and I'm like, do you know anything about football? They're like, no, we never played.
Yeah, I think the game would monopolize the world, but we're
talking about something completely fictional here, folks. If Tim Tebow wins a Super Bowl, I guarantee you, I will be the next president of the United States at 20 years old. That's probably about as good a potential.
All right.
Okay, let's take a quick break here.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in a moment. Okay, we are back here on the C&S Show. We have a question on the comment board. Guys, you can comment. Call 949-456-2911, 949-456-2911 if you want to get your voice to be heard on the program. Or you can do, what this guy did on the comment board from National Sports. What do you think of the tie rule in the NFL? I'm going to first start with Sam.
Tie rule in the NFL is a very strange and mysterious rule, just as their overtime rules are. It's very sad that the NFL cannot adopt the same rules for overtime as college football, which I think is maybe the most exciting thing in all of sports is college football overtime. You look at it where you start on on the opposing 35-yard line, and you're going to score. It's going to be fast. It's going to be rapid fire. There's a bunch of double OT, triple OT. It goes there. You know it's going to be exciting. NFL OT, you have what happened last season with Tim Tebow to Demaryius Thomas. In one play, boom, game's over. Or you can have someone drive down, kick a field goal. Of course, now you can come back and get more points after that, but why not just expand it to college football rules so there's no ties? I think the tie rule, as our commenter referred to it, is kind of obsolete at this point. It happens so rarely. I think it should just be completely eliminated. Change it to college overtime rules. I guarantee that'll get the NFL much better ratings.
You know what I think? And I think it's pretty simple. They should, to me, they should just make it very simple. One overtime. Whoever scores the most in overtime wins.
It does lend itself to ties, though. So are you for ties or not for ties?
Okay, but alright. Let's assume that they both tie and they score the same amount of points in overtime. That will go into a second overtime where both teams will have sudden death. Whoever scores first wins.
That's not a bad idea. I still agree with the college rules over that, but
it would simplify things.
What?
It would simplify things, the one I'm saying, because you see so many guys get so confused. I know I know your way's easy, but let's face it, NFL players get confused a lot with everything. And it was same with coaches too. They make some crazy decisions because they don't know what's going on. So if you simplify it to the most simple extent, then they won't be mistaken.
Like I just said, yours is a fairly good solution, not my chosen solution, but it would work better than what's going on right now. Okay, let's move on to a different topic. Let's talk about kind of a player who's been a little bit of a conundrum recently, really for his entire career, Cam Newton, who just has so much talent, yet not on a great team, and his numbers have been down this season, and he just doesn't look as great as he's really supposed to look. Is he ever going to reach that superstar status, Cameron?
Yeah, I think he is. He's just got to be very patient and just keep chomping, keep waiting. It'll come. It will come. I know he's super impatient right now, and I would be too. But just keep chomping at the bit. Keep grinding. It will happen. It just takes